Larry. He's the owner of 9 North Records, Turnpike Music, and he's responsible for breaking a few acts, like the Dixie Chicks, Montgomery Gentry, Gretchen Wilson, Patty Loveless, just to name a few. I mean, there's many more I could go on, but we'd spend the whole 15 minutes. Larry was with Sony Music for 15 years.
12.
12. I gave you a few years. Well, then you had to get, what was it, an immunity challenge?
Yeah.
Explain that about, you had an immunity challenge?
Well, anybody who's worked at a corporation like a Sony or anywhere, you have to survive multiple regimes and multiple bosses and the whole bit, and you have a series of immunity challenges that you win, and then eventually run out of them. So I like to say that I had a very happy 11 and a half years with the Japanese, and the Germans bombed me in 6 months. So I was shot out of a cannon and started my own company. That's what happened.
Seriously.
Seriously, that's what happened.
And we're here today because Larry is a character, and this is one of the reasons why we have taken a record label, and I work with Larry, and you know, you typically think of a record label as a one-dimensional circular label in the middle of a vinyl record, and we have completely broken out of that mold. And Larry, actually, when did we start working together?
A couple of years ago.
A couple of years ago. But I don't want to talk about me. I'm going to let him explain. Actually, I want to ask you a question I was thinking about. What was the 1 minute, or what happened when you thought, this is really changing the record business and I'm really connecting with people in a digital way?
I think it was the evolution. This is going to sound a little strange, but it's the evolution of the fan club approach. Okay, because in the old analog age, people would send snail mail out and say, hey, call your local radio station and bother them about my song. And then it became email, mass email. Well, the problem with that is that as the technology was developing, radio stations obviously had caller ID. So a guy in LA would be getting calls from a superfan in Iowa, and they'd say, why the hell am I getting a call from somebody in Iowa when I'm in Los Angeles unless I'm getting jobbed by the fan club? And it became apparent that that was no longer going to work with the evolution of technology. Now with the ability for artists to develop followings on Twitter and Facebook and the like, and become, kind of create their own bully pulpit, they can reach that audience directly and ask for that kind of support, but it's sub rosa. Not a lot of radio guys pay attention to Twitter, and they should, but they don't at the moment. So it's a great way to go about this. When we won a huge online battle, like a Song Wars thing, between another label's artist and one of ours, and we ran it, won it, I should say running, just going away by the use of social media. That was one of the moments I realized how powerful this could be for an act.
Well, in radio, we refer to the humanization of the brand as stationality. And I make a living with what I call sociality, or I call it, you know, creating your sociality. And with over 31,000 followers, Larry, what do you think it is that make people think or find you so interesting? And what is it that you do?
I don't know. No, I'm kidding. I'm just honest.
You're fascinating.
I mean, no, I'll tell you what it is. One of the reasons I started my company was because I worked at a company, a Sony Music, that was a lot about mystique, and a lot of things were hidden from the artists as well as the consumers. I decided to take a completely different approach and try to demystify the way record labels work, and try to explain to people the way it works and take them behind the scenes and make them realize there's not some great all-powerful Oz kind of running the whole thing. It's just a lot of hard work. And as you know, General Wesley Clark once said, there are only 2 types of plans, the kinds that don't work and the kinds that might. All right, and we talk about those plans very openly and what it is that we do as a company all the time. And it seems to have engaged people on some level.
Last year, Larry was recognized as the Indie Executive Label of the Year in the biggest industry gathering in country music, and he's known in Nashville as Mr. Social Media, like Mr. Twitter, and they call you that, right?
Yeah, they do.
Besides you, who else do you think in music or in country music really gets it?
Blake Shelton clearly does. as an artist. Blake Shelton is an artist. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Blake or not. Blake is Miranda Lambert's husband. Maybe you know him in that connection. Miranda was actually on the Grammys nomination special the other night. Blake has completely altered his career and made himself, in part, a superstar through his very clever use of Twitter and his great sense of humor.
PETA doesn't like him very much.
Huh?
PETA doesn't like him very much.
Well, that's, you know. But again, part of creating your brand online and humanizing it is knowing what you are as much as what you aren't. So it's okay for him to just be what he is. That's what everybody should do. Just be what you are.
It wouldn't work for everybody to be like the way Blake is. I mean, it wouldn't
No.
work for me. And we have any country fans out here? Any country music fans?
A few.
I need a woo. I need a hee-haw.
Yeehaw! Okay.
Everybody knows who Blake Shelton is. Then we were talking about. Have you seen his tweets? No. Oh my God! If you get a chance, it's Blake Shelton.
Yeah, at Blake Shelton. He's very funny.
And then Larry's 9 North LP, N-I-N-E North LP, and he is hilarious too. So with that said, what do you think people are doing that's like disconnecting? What's broken that they're not doing right?
Well, you know, the other day, Nelly went public about attacking his label in the way that his latest project was released and promoted. Well, I mean, you know, all due respect to Nelly, and I really enjoy a lot of his music, his heyday is kind of 10 years past. It doesn't mean he can't reinvent himself. But the problem is that if he's making music that is rooted a decade ago and the label is setting about promoting it in the same way that they were a decade ago, there's a complete disconnect with his audience of today and his audience of a decade ago. So that to me is one of the biggest, it's one of the biggest issues facing everybody, especially in the music industry. You would think that an industry that is so technologically minded would be a little more forward thinking, but in reality, a lot of the music industry is comprised of Luddites. I mean, it's really like, if there was a way to control the music and put it on wax cylinders, people would still have that set up that way today. You know, but that horse has left the barn, as we say. You know, everything's digital.
If I could leave, like, I know we don't have that much time.
1 minute and 54 seconds.
This is quick. What is something like a take-home? Like, because I find you so fascinating, just like reading your tweets. Interesting, going from like a Bob Dylan quote to something about Washington or Eleanor Roosevelt. What is it that you would leave as a take-home?
It's just as random as I am. I'm just a pop culture garbage bag, which is part of the job description, I think, just to keep track of pop culture. And it's just whatever strikes my fancy at the time is what I put out there, and I'm glad that people seem to dig it. I do want to say, in the waning moments, that actually I ought to be interviewing Jessica. She's the one with 100,000 followers. Okay. And I also want to give a shout out to Jeff Pulvers for inviting us here and putting on this great event. Cheer for Jeff and the Brands Comp team. 58 seconds.
And you can. Well,
I feel like I'm doing an Academy Awards acceptance speech like that.
It's like, well,
the big orchestra is going to start playing us
I gotta thank God, my brother, my cousin, my record label.
Yeah.
So what's next for you in social media? What do you see as the future for music and for 9 North?
Continued interaction with the fans, and maybe bully pulpit was the wrong term. I just use that as associated with the presidency as a bully pulpit. You know, the ability for the president to push forward an agenda. I think that, you know, as long as artists continue to bring themselves to the process, bring the best music they can possibly, bring the best of their personalities forward through whatever medium ends up being offered to them, as that type of communication, things are going to continue to move forward and they will find their audience. There's plenty of money to still be made in this. Everybody can still eat, just not as much as they used to.
Right. Yeah. And with 1 second, it's red.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.